Imagine stepping into the cage against a man who has mastered every angle, every reaction, every ounce of preparation that modern combat sports can offer. That's Ilia Topuria, a fighter who didn't rise to the top because of luck, hype, or even a gifted coach in his corner. He built himself piece by piece, designing one of the most effective training systems in MMA today. And the scariest part? It's a system that nearly any dedicated athlete could replicate if they had the discipline to do it. Now, Topuria wasn't supposed to be here. Born in Germany, raised in Georgia, and then moving to Spain as a teenager, he came from countries that weren't exactly considered MMA powerhouses. Spain in particular had almost no deep infrastructure for developing world champions. There weren't legendary coaches waiting for him, no super camps, no blueprint. Yet from that unlikely environment, he carved a path that took him past names like Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, and Alexander Volkanovski. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of principles, and those principles are what we're breaking down today. So let's get into the first pillar of Ilia Topuria's system, the foundation of Greco-Roman wrestling. If you've ever watched a Greco-Roman specialist step into MMA, you'll notice something instantly. These athletes carry a kind of physical presence that is impossible to fake. Years of clinch battles, explosive lifts, and upper body throws hardwire a level of raw strength and balance that turns the body into a weapon. In Greco-Roman, you don't just move your opponent, you pick up another grown human being and manipulate them like a barbell. It's Olympic lifting with resistance that fights back. And when that's your base from childhood, it never leaves you. Ilia began his journey wrestling in Germany before continuing in Georgia, one of the toughest wrestling nations in the world. That meant by the time he reached his teens, he already had a reservoir of physicality that most MMA fighters can only build through years of strength and conditioning. That's why, to this day, Topuria is completely at ease in the clinch. Where others panic under pressure, he thrives. Where strikers normally hesitate, afraid of being tied up or taken down, Ilia can throw combinations without fear. His base doesn't just support his grappling, it amplifies his striking by giving him confidence in those chaotic moments. This is a critical lesson for aspiring fighters. Your base matters. If you're starting out in MMA, don't try to build everything at once. Commit to mastering one foundational discipline, whether that's wrestling, jiu-jitsu, or striking. Wrestling, and especially Greco-Roman, offers a physical and mental toughness that pays dividends across the rest of your career. But Topuria didn't stop there. At 15, after moving to Spain, he discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and spent 2 years refining his ground game. Shortly after, he fell in love with boxing at age 17. Here's where his story becomes unique. Rather than just training casually, Ilia and his brother built their own system of study and drilling. They didn't just shadow box, they sat down with notebooks, replaying footage of fighters like Canelo Alvarez and Julio Cesar Chavez, analyzing every movement. Then, they designed drills to mimic those patterns and repeated them relentlessly. And this is one of Topuria's greatest secrets: video analysis paired with targeted drilling. Every fighter watches film, but very few do it with purpose. Most just study tape in a passive way, maybe noticing tendencies but not acting on them. Ilia turned analysis into practice. He and his brother asked, "What exact mistake does this opponent make? How can we replicate it in training? What scenario drills can we create so that when it happens in the fight, it feels familiar?" That's how he prepared for Volkanovski. Not just with general training, but by identifying micro mistakes like foot positioning or angle preferences and building them into specific drills. So when the fight arrived, he wasn't surprised. He was rehearsing a script he'd already written. If you're a developing fighter, here's a practical takeaway. Don't just watch fights, dissect them. Keep a notebook next to you, pause the video, and write down what you see. Then turn that observation into a drill you can repeat. If an opponent favors circling toward their lead hand, practice cutting off that angle. If you notice a jab drops on the exit, build a counter around it. Knowledge without drilling is useless. Knowledge with practice becomes instinct. Now there's another key aspect that sets Ilia apart: his separation of disciplines. Many MMA fighters jump straight into MMA practice, blending everything together in one chaotic mix. Ilia does the opposite. For most of the year, he trains each discipline individually. Boxing with boxing coaches, wrestling with wrestlers, Jiu-Jitsu with grapplers. He doesn't start mixing until fight camp, when it's time to integrate the skills. Why does this matter? Because learning from specialists forces you to level up. Training boxing in an MMA gym will only get you MMA-level boxing. Training with real boxers exposes you to details, tricks, and techniques you'd never encounter otherwise. The same goes for wrestling and jiu-jitsu. This is why Ilia's body shots are some of the best in the division, because he didn't just learn boxing for MMA. He learned boxing like a boxer. So if you're serious about growth, steal this approach. Don't only spar MMA. Spend time in specialized gyms. Train with people who live and breathe that one craft. You'll be shocked how fast your skill set evolves. And here's the brilliance. By keeping sparring to fight camps only, Ilia also reduces wear and tear. He's not burning himself out with endless wars in the gym. Instead, he focuses on drilling, targeted training, and only brings out full contact intensity when it truly counts. That's how you preserve your longevity and stay sharp deep into a career. Strength training, building a fight-ready body. Topuria's strength work is stripped down to essentials: squats, presses, deadlifts, pull-ups, lunges, the same compound lifts you'd see in any solid program. But what makes the difference is his emphasis on rotational strength and core stability, because fights are decided by who can generate torque and resist being twisted off balance. A typical lower body session might look like this: back squats, 4x5, building raw lower body strength; Romanian deadlifts, 3x6, hamstring and hip hinge power; walking lunges, 3x8 leg, single leg balance for shots and scrambles; landmine rotational press, 4x6 side, hip to shoulder torque, the engine of his punch; Pallof press, holds 3i20 side, anti-rotation, key for clinch battles. Notice the theme. Everything connects back to fight demands. If an exercise doesn't translate, it doesn't stay. That's a mindset more athletes should adopt. Practical tip: if you train for MMA, add just one rotational lift and one anti-rotational drill into your week. It'll carry over to striking power and clinch control faster than another biceps curl ever will. Power training, speed over size. Topuria's power doesn't come from being the biggest guy in the room. It comes from his ability to rotate explosively and time his strikes perfectly. Power, after all, is force plus speed. Here's a simple power block any fighter can use twice a week. Med ball rotational throws, 6x3 side, maximum intent. Think throw through the wall. Broad jumps or box jumps, 4x3, focusing on clean landings. Band resisted punches, 3-6 side, driving the hip and shoulder together. These are short, crisp, and explosive. Stop when speed fades. Remember, you're training to move fast, not to grind reps. Conditioning, fighting to the last bell. Conditioning is where many fighters get it wrong. Endless road work or endless go until you puke circuits don't mimic the way fights actually unfold. Topuria's system is smarter. Build a base first, then transition to high-intensity, fight-specific work. Phase 1, base building. 30-40 minutes of steady cardio, zone 2 pace, nose breathing if possible. 2 to 3x per week. Skill circuits like shadow boxing with sprawls or footwork ladders, 3x8 minutes. Phase 2, fight camp. 5x5-minute rounds on bike or track, with 3 15-second sprints inside each round. Circuit example: sled push 15 millis, 20s pad flurry, 20s pummel battle, 20s footwork. Repeat for 4 minutes, rest 90 seconds. This keeps training specific. You're not just in shape, you're in fight shape. Tip for fighters: after every hard conditioning session, ask yourself, does this feel like a round? If the answer is no, the session isn't serving you. Reaction and reflexes, seeing before acting. Perhaps the most underrated part of Topuria's training is his reaction work. Fights are won by those who see the opening first. He trains not only his hands and feet, but also his eyes and brain. A few drills you can steal: reaction ball wall. Bounce, throw, catch on one hop only. 3x30s, coach Q drill, Partner flashes a pad or calls a number, you respond with the assigned strike. Constraint sparring. Limit the rules, e.g., body shots only, clinch only, to sharpen reactions without taking head damage. These sharpen instincts without adding unnecessary wear and tear. That's why Topuria keeps full sparring mostly for camp. He's not proving toughness, he's extending his career. Recovery. The secret weapon. Everyone forgets. And finally, none of this sticks without recovery. Topuria sleeps 8 to 9 hours, uses naps strategically, and stacks simple habits like mobility work and balanced nutrition. Nothing fancy, no magic supplement, just consistency. If you want to copy one thing here, start small. Commit to a fixed sleep schedule and 5 minutes of slow breathing after training. That alone can transform your recovery over time. At this point, you can see why Ilia Topuria's rise wasn't a matter of luck. He didn't stumble into world-class ability, he built it. But the final layer of his system isn't just about training the body. It's about how he organizes his week, how he thinks about the game, and how he protects his longevity so he can keep climbing. Weekly planning. Discipline wins when motivation fades. One of the simplest yet most powerful habits Topuria follows is weekly planning. Every Sunday, he sits down and maps out his week. Training sessions, conditioning blocks, strength lifts, recovery time, even reading. He treats his schedule the way a CEO treats a business plan. Precise, deliberate, and with no wasted seconds. That may not sound glamorous, but it's a superpower. Because once fight week comes, or even just another grueling camp, there's no guessing. He doesn't rely on motivation, he relies on a system. Tip for fighters: try this today. Before your week begins, write out your training blocks, rest days, and even your meals. When the work is on paper, excuses disappear. The biggest enemy of consistency is decision fatigue. Solve that by planning before the week even starts. The mental game: patience over chaos. If you watch Ilia fight, one thing stands out: patience. He doesn't chase knockouts with wild flurries, he doesn't overextend. He waits for the right opening, and then he commits with absolute precision. That patience is a product of training and mindset. Here's the lesson: world-class fighters don't win by doing more. They win by doing the right thing at the right time. In boxing terms, it's poker, not roulette. Fold bad hands, wait for your moment, then go all in. This mindset can be trained. During sparring or pad work, force yourself to breathe, reset, and observe. Not every exchange needs a response. Not every feint deserves a reaction. Train yourself to be comfortable in stillness, so when the chaos comes, you're the calmest person in the cage. Sparring philosophy: quality over quantity. One of the most refreshing parts of Topuria's approach is how he treats sparring. He doesn't grind endless hard rounds year-round. Instead, he saves full-contact sparring for fight camps, when it matters. The rest of the time, he uses drilling, technical sparring, and constrained games to sharpen specific reactions without unnecessary damage. That shift isn't about softness, it's about longevity. By the time you've had dozens of pro fights, your toughness is proven. What matters is saving your body and brain for when it counts. This is the new trend at the highest level. Spar smarter, not more. Practical sparring idea you can use: body-only rounds. 5 by 3 minutes, forces you to focus on angles, head movement, and body targeting. Clinch-only rounds. Restart every time one athlete gets free or hits a takedown. Builds pure wrestling and balance. Southpaw versus orthodox rounds. Switch stances each round so you're constantly solving new problems. These formats keep sparring sharp, fun, and safe, while teaching you more in less time. Recovery and longevity: the hidden advantage. Here's something many fighters overlook. The margins at the elite level come from recovery, not just training. Topuria's routine is simple but effective. 8-9 hours of sleep, short naps, cryotherapy or cold immersion, balanced meals, and basic supplements like creatine, magnesium, and omega-3. But the real key? Consistency. He doesn't skip the boring stuff. He repeats it daily. Over years, that's what keeps him fresh while others burn out. If you want a shortcut to better recovery, here are 3 simple rules you can adopt today. Fixed sleep schedule. Same bedtime, same wake time, even on weekends. Post-training. Cool down. 5 to 10 minutes of mobility plus slow breathing to flip into recovery mode. Fuel for purpose. Eat protein with every meal and carbs around your hardest sessions. Supplements are optional, but consistency is not. The mind of a champion. Pragmatism over hype. Perhaps the most important quality Ilia shows is pragmatism. He doesn't obsess over trends, fancy equipment, or the latest internet fad. He asks, does this help me win fights? If the answer is no, it's cut. If yes, it's drilled until it becomes second nature. This pragmatic lens is something every fighter, or anyone chasing excellence, can copy. You don't need access to $1 million gym. You don't need exotic supplements. You need clarity, discipline, and the willingness to do the simple things with relentless consistency. The takeaway: building your own system. So what can you steal from Ilia Topuria's playbook? Here are the essentials boiled down into a checklist. Master a base discipline before trying to be good at everything. Use video analysis to find real mistakes, then drill them until automatic. Train each skill separately, then integrate them in camp. Keep strength and conditioning simple but fight-specific. Squat, hinge, rotate, and condition in rounds. Sharpen your reactions with games, not wars. Plan your week like a pro so motivation doesn't matter. Recover like it's your job, because at the elite level, it is. And finally, be patient. Don't force success. Build habits that make success inevitable. That's the difference between hype and legacy.